Hey everyone, welcome to the Do the Thing podcast. This is your host, Stacey Lauren. Well, you guys, oh my gosh, I met my next guest at an in-person, I would say it was an investment mastermind, and I was totally blown away by her and the work that she's doing to help people get results in terms of being able to remove these obstacles that are in our lives that keep us stuck. And it's funny, just in the conversations that we had, she actually helped me in a huge way because it was funny. We're in the middle of this mastermind and people are giving me advice on how to do something that I was working on in the business. And she was like, just so you know, none of that's going to work until you do this one thing. And it was amazing because after that, I did that one thing. And then it sort of just opened up this whole new level for me and the people that I'm able to help now because she did that. And since then, we actually did a live in the Do the Thing community and had humongous success just being able to help the community members understand the work that she's doing. One of the community members got to do a hot seat with her and she helped her. And I still have been hearing back from that member just saying how much it meant to her. And so, oh my gosh. So you guys, we're actually bringing her on today to talk to her more about this magic thing that she gets to do to help people do the thing. I am welcoming Erin to the show. Hey, Erin.
Hello, good to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to do this with you. I just feel like every time we connect, it's just, those people that you meet and you just feel like you were meant to meet them. I feel that way with you. I'd love to start off and just have you share about MindFix and what you're actually doing to help people and maybe just more about the MindFix story.
Sure. MindFix came to be just very quickly. I ran a consulting agency for a long time and knew I wanted to shift and change into something else. Couldn't figure it out. And I ended up going through a chronic pain period where I was experiencing all sorts of pain and became very depressed and anxious because of it and didn't know what was going on. And I tried so many different things to help and just nothing worked. I went to therapy and physical practitioners and you literally name it, I tried it. And I realized that for, I think, high achievers and intelligent people, sometimes our own thinking can get in the way of our improvements and can prevent us from getting what we want and desire. So I realized that I needed to find a way to be able to help myself. And so it was through that vision and that desire to start to feel better and to get clarity in my own life that I began doing my research and began my own science experiment and uncovered what my team and I have now evolved into a really beautiful methodology that helps people achieve more and feel better than they ever have by doing the opposite of what many coaching and training and therapy programs do. So instead of giving people more advice or more things they need to do or recommendations or tips or tools or strategies or tactics to follow, what we do is say, hey, we know you want to move forward. It feels a bit sticky. Let's find out what invisible blocks and barriers are in your way, and let's remove those. Let's create ease and momentum for your journey instead of friction and resistance so that you can achieve what it is you desire. Because so many people feel they're stuck or there's something wrong with them or they're broken or why do I repeat these patterns or why can I not take action in a certain way? And they'll try to do more. They'll try to meditate more. They'll try to work an extra hour. They'll try to time block and apply all of these techniques. But what we have found is when people are repeating patterns and they're not moving forward, if you think of like a staircase, right? Those moments at the bottom of that next step, they're kind of just stuck and they need to get up to that next step, but they're like, all of this energy where I was moving forward before, it's not working anymore. We find that oftentimes we want to remove what's in the way to create that ease instead of adding more to the to-do list.
Yeah, it's amazing because I've even, just so you guys know, we're in similar communities where I get to see Erin in other areas where she's just helping so many people and a lot of entrepreneurs, it seems like too, that you've been able to help and actually professionals because in the Do the Thing community, it's a mixture. And it's got to feel so good to know that you followed this path that you were on where you figured out how to help yourself And you were so invested in identifying what that was that now, because of that drive and that determination, you're now able to help other people.
Oh, it's deeply fulfilling. I remember when I was running the consulting agency, I had just hit a point where I was like, even if we do really great work and we produce exquisite deliverables and we complete this contract and we do everything perfectly, at the end, there's just this monetary transaction. And I remember feeling empty and moving into this world where we get to see people's lives completely changed or their relationships saved, or people who have not been able to figure out their self-esteem or confidence issues for 20 or 30 years suddenly go like, now I can enjoy the rest of my life. Those types of results and getting to see those day in and day out every week is so deeply fulfilling. And I knew when I switched, I was like, oh, I found the work that I'm meant to be doing for the rest of my life. And it's such an honor.
How do you think that happens for someone when they actually find that work? And it's almost like your life's purpose, right? How do you activate that? Because there's so many people that have something in their life that's happening, struggling with whatever, and either they don't do a quest where they are able to get through it, or maybe they did get through it, but then they're not helping people. How did you tap into that?
We have this little exercise, sometimes a thought exercise that we'll take people through with. I forget where I learned it. It might have been Strategic Coach, a variation of it, but we just call it the hell yes exercise. And I remember feeling stuck and not knowing what I wanted to do next. And when we reflect and think about the things that bring us a 10 out of 10 energy in life and the things that just light us up, that we would do no matter what, that bring us so much joy and excitement, and we have so much curiosity around, and the things that we seem to be able to improve on. And there's this just limitless ability for us to expand in that area. We identify those and then explore them. It doesn't mean like I need to start a business around it or I need to be doing this all the time. But at the time, I was interested just in pursuing my passion of human psychology. And I started to explore a number of different assessments like DISC assessment and Kolbe assessment and strengths finders. And I thought maybe I want to be certified in these and do this type of work. And I pursued test projects with test clients. And I was like, no. Very quickly after a few months, I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. And I got much more clear on what I did want to do. I wanted to work with individuals. I wanted to change individuals' lives instead of working with large groups of people and working with interpersonal dynamics. And I only got that clarity because I continued to explore, not because I was like, I found my life's purpose in psychology and I need to know what to do now. But by spending time and energy in the areas that give us that excitement and that are our hell yeses, I think oftentimes people are able to activate more and more of that positive energy and experience flow from within. So it's just, number one, being aware of where do I get increased energy. And number two, investing in that time and energy into the things that are your hell yeses in life.
Yeah. And you're making me think too, once you start exploring that, then it just only expands from there because you're constantly tapping into that.
Yeah. And there's no failures. Like I said, I tried out a number of contracts and test client projects. They did not go as expected. They went fine. The clients got results, but I did not enjoy them. So instead of that being a failure, because this was in an area of expansion and a hell yes for me, I just got more curious and I took that as feedback and then said, okay, what do I want to do next now that I know this?
Well, I'd love to talk about what you did for me, if that's okay.
Of course, that's your story.
Yeah, well, because I think it would help people see through this, help see how these blocks can really affect you. We're just literally sitting at this mastermind. So Do the Thing started as a research project for my book. So I was never meant to really monetize what I was doing other than the book was my goal. And then I ended up starting the Facebook group and I was running challenges because I was testing my formula. And so the whole time I was doing what you just said, where I'm following just my fun and my passion. It was just meant to be this, almost like you play a video game. It was just my side kind of fun thing. And then while I was doing that, I was exploring actually other businesses that I wanted to start. And then I eventually just decided how much I loved it and how many more people I'd be able to help if I monetized it. And so when we met, I was just in the process of monetizing Find Your Voice, which is a challenge that I do. It's 17 days and it's been getting huge transformations for people. And I remember saying something about, I'm working on how to promote this challenge. And the way the Facebook group works, it's kind of like an app when you have a free version of an app like Duolingo or Fitbit or whatever. And then there's people that then want to upgrade the app to get more features, right? And so that's how a Facebook group is. Instead of having to invest $1 million in an app, you're just putting a Facebook group together. And then there's some people that want to invest more. This is what I've realized now after monetizing it. I was stuck. I was like, oh, how should I promote this? What's going on? I don't remember even what I asked, but then everyone's giving me advice on what to do and all this stuff. And then you were like, that's not really your problem. You have something deeper going on. And it turned out after you said that, and I don't remember exactly what our conversation was specifically that got it to come out, but I realized I was scared to monetize the group because I didn't want people to not like me anymore when I started charging money, which was something that was like a childhood wound that I had that I got to work on. And like you said, the self-awareness, once you're able to identify it, it helps so much. And I'm just kind of wondering, how do you do that? How does that work? And then I'd love to transition into MindFix as a whole and how that even, because just from a side effect of something that you were able to help me with, it just has opened up so many more opportunities for me. And I can't even imagine when you're working with someone one-on-one, what that can do.
Yeah. The clues to our blocks, the clues to freedom and joy and continual expansive success can be found in our language. So the only thing that I did differently than everybody else that was in that room giving you advice is I listened very closely to the words that you were using as you described your challenge. So yes, you said, I'm not sure what to do with my group. And yes, you listed 10 other things in your whatever 30 seconds or 60 seconds that we were given to share, right? But what I heard you say is, I'm really nervous. I'm really scared that it's going to impact what people think of me. And when there are little bubbles of those fears that come out, they are clues as to where we're going to be feeling or experiencing resistance and friction. So that all the advice, all the forward momentum are going to run into those blocks and those walls. And if that's something that you shared off the top of your head as one of the primary things when you were only given a handful of seconds to share, that is top of mind and you are aware, and that is going to be something strong. And so unless that's addressed, all of the tactical advice will run into that block. It will be the dam that the river will funnel into. And if there's enough energy, you can force over it, you can push through it, but there's always going to be that ripple, that friction, that resistance, no matter how much energy is there. It may catch up in the short term, it may catch up in the long term. But if there is some fear, then without addressing it, that will cause a snag in forward momentum. And it takes more energy and more effort to push through it. And that gets exhausting over time. That's where physical chronic pain could come in years, decades later, is when you push through things and you haven't addressed them. Can you do it? Absolutely. If you had a fear, you could absolutely do it. Someone's like, you have to do it. You have to. Otherwise, someone's life is in danger. You could, of course, do it. But you're doing it through pushing through. And that's what a lot of entrepreneurs do. And they only know how to push through. They don't know how to dissolve or remove those blocks, which is a possibility that creates so much more ease and momentum than they ever imagined.
So I'd love to hear how you help someone identify the blocks, because there's always a surface level, right? And then you're able to then listen to the language and the patterns to go deeper, or even how can someone at least start the process too?
Yeah. The easiest and simple question is something that many people use at their end of year reflections is they set their goal and they envision themselves achieving their goal. And then the question is, if there was something that was going to get in my way of this, what would it be? And just start brainstorming and writing down the list. Or is there any part of me that is scared for me to move forward towards this? Because internal family systems, which is a really fascinating way of looking at the world and human beings, purports that we are not just, I am not just Erin, you're not just Stacey, but we have many parts of us. And so I may have a part that feels like a successful entrepreneur, but I may have another part that's really scared about what will happen next year. And I may have another part that just wants to goof off and relax. So we all have these different parts of us. And so by asking the question, are there any parts of me that are really scared or don't want me to move forward towards this goal, we can actually create a list of, yes, there's a frightened part, or there's a part that got screwed over in the business transaction 10 years ago that never wants to experience that again. There's a part that feels unintelligent. There's a part that feels like incompetent. So you can start to surface these different parts that are in the background, kind of pulling invisible ropes, trying to pull you backwards, saying, don't move forward. And you can bring them to the surface. You can name them and you can look at them. And by having this master list of, is there any part of me that is nervous to move forward? Or what might get in the way of me moving forward toward this goal? That creates a nice little brainstorm that people can see on a sheet of paper in front of them that starts to shed light on, why have I been feeling this resistance? It just feels like resistance. It feels like a block. But when I look at it, it's like, oh, there's a part of me that doesn't want to be screwed over again. There's a part of me that feels like I'm a financially irresponsible person and won't be able to handle the success. There's a part of me that thinks my husband won't respect me if I'm more successful than him. So by looking at those and saying there's a part, instead of identifying and being like, this is who I am, we can go, no, it's just a part. And we can work with parts. We can integrate them. We can take care of their needs, because usually they're frozen young parts from the past that we can integrate into ourselves and move forward with.
Wow. Because you're able to really see what it is that's holding them back and then go deeper than the first thing that people think. It's actually going to another level.
Yeah. And what I shared is just one kind of DIY way for people to increase their awareness. We find that by approaching people from multiple angles, like, where is it stored in the body? Because sometimes people don't have the words for it. It's an old trauma. It's pre-verbal. It's something they can't consciously remember. They blocked it out. So we'll find out, where is it stuck in the body? And we'll go in from that angle. Or other people don't want to admit that there's a selfish part, or they don't want to admit their shame. So we'll come in from a different angle and we'll say, what are the emotions or the felt experiences? So sometimes we'll start with words. Sometimes we'll start with the body. Sometimes we'll start with emotions. And there's different ways in, because we all have protective mechanisms. And if it was so easy to figure ourselves out and be able to work with ourselves, we'd all be doing it. But it's notoriously challenging because we have these protective mechanisms and these parts that want to keep us safe. And so they often will block us from being able to see what everybody else can see.
Yeah, I see this a lot, especially in my singles group or even just people in the dating world. It's hard, right? When you've loved someone and that love has been destroyed, and then to want to love again after that. And so I'm imagining that's got to be a big part of what's happening where they're stuck, is there's something there that they still need to work through to be able to really open themselves up again fully.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times, just with the way that our brains work, we experience something and then we assume it'll happen again. It feels much more likely and it becomes a focus. So someone who's been in a car accident may have a very different experience and feeling around seatbelts than someone who never has and is like, it's not going to happen. It happens once to one person, one time in their life, in 1 second of millions and billions of seconds that they're alive. And they're going to have a deeply different felt experience as they move forward, an expectation of what may happen, and the body has a different felt sense of what could happen and what's going to be realistic. So the experiences that we go through do play a large part, whether we want to admit it or not, on what our subconscious is preparing for and expects. And so when we aren't able to release those past experiences, we often fear them and then recreate them unknowingly.
So what happens next after you sort of identify what those blocks are and what's holding you back?
Yeah, so the identification is important because you can't really do anything unless you know what the blocks are. And then the next step really is this, what we call subtracting, dissolving a block, or clearing. Different people have different preferences for the words, but it really is subtracting, dissolving the limitation or the block. So if someone has a sense that they're not worthy as a human, if someone has a fear of intimacy, if someone has a belief that they're a bad business person, if someone has a somatic trauma stored in them because they were hit when they expressed themselves, and so they're really nervous to express themselves and that fear is stuck in the body. Once those blocks are found, then we have different ways to allow people to dissolve or remove or reduce them so that they're either gone completely or they've been reduced enough that they're not holding people back anymore. The methods we use, there's probably a combination of 14 different methodologies that we've blended together, and it depends on the person and how they respond. What works really well for one person may not work at all for someone else. And it is impacted by the level with which someone's able to connect to themselves and their body and their emotions. You can imagine someone who is out of touch with their physical experience and can't name or express any emotions, doesn't know how they're feeling. It's much more challenging for them to be able to clear things because they can't even connect with them or feel them. So it's really about meeting people where they're at with their experiences, understanding how connected they are to themselves, and then finding the right method that is most appropriate for them to help them move through their own blocks.
And what have you found changes in someone when they've gone through this work?
What doesn't change is more the easier question. We've seen everything shift. There's so much more clarity around what people want to do, how they spend their time, what their purpose is. There's inevitably an increased sense of confidence and self-worth and value once people remove the layers of I'm not okay, I'm not good enough, I'm not valuable, I'm not important. Oftentimes people feel physically better in their bodies. Some people who have been unable to lose weight will lose weight, or people have energy back. Inevitably, we hear sometimes secondhand, sometimes firsthand, that relationships change. Because once someone shifts who they are inside, and then they show up in their relationships differently, the quality of those relationships often will spiral upwards. And that's been really beautiful. And we don't promote that, but that's an incredible positive consequence that we see happen. People are able to make better decisions. They almost always are making more money in their business. And then they often just wake up feeling differently. They're happier. They're having more sense, calm, freedom, whatever they're aiming for, peace.
And you mentioned in the beginning that idea of how you noticed my language patterns and what was coming up for me. How would someone else be able to identify that, whether it's with themselves and something they're saying or in somebody else? Is there a ninja trick?
It's so funny. It's almost part of my operating system. I have to actually turn it off when I'm with people because I don't want to just be a feedback machine. I hear what people aren't saying. So for example, I was listening to a friend this morning and she was telling me that she's like, I am not happy. I am not feeling amazing. But there was a continual avoidance of, I noticed she was never in a 10-minute conversation. There was no expression of what she was feeling. She was disconnecting from her body. She was disconnecting from her feelings. And there was never once, despite what she was going through, this expression of what she was feeling. So I noticed the absence of words, like, oh, there's no expression there. In terms of people desiring to become kind of junior sleuths for themselves and to pick things out, I would say, I've never been asked this question before. It's something that comes naturally to me, to turn on one's radar for when there is a shift in energy, like there's something smoothing inside of someone's physical appearance or their body expressions or their tone changes. There's something that happened there. There was and I would get curious about it. Like, oh, I noticed you leaned back and crossed your arms when she started talking about this transaction. Is there something there that you're experiencing? I get really curious and I notice shifts. I notice changes in tones, in expression, in energy. And then when people are expressing fear or worry or hesitation or reservation, and there's a contraction within someone, whether it's verbally or physically, there's something where someone is uncomfortable or feeling unsafe. There's something there. And asking permission if that's something that's okay to talk about or to explore, or even more powerfully, what we can recommend is focus on you. Notice when that happens within you. Notice, be aware when you're in a conversation and you're suddenly gripping your hands, when you suddenly freeze and just want to end the conversation. When you're talking and you're suddenly like, I need to go to the fridge and start eating. Pause, rewind, what happened? Get really curious and start noticing what these triggers are that are activating something inside of you, because that's typically when there's a block or an anchor that's being hit upon. And people hit upon their blocks and anchors all day, every day, and don't notice it for years. But when you really slow down and go, what just happened there? What was it? Oh, it was the expression on his face. And I'm feeling nervous. We start to learn so much more about ourselves. And then we start to see the patterns we're repeating. And when we notice and can talk about these patterns, like I have a pattern of getting nervous when someone looks at me that way, we can work with that because it's a pattern. It's not just, I get nervous during the day. I don't know, I need a pill. No. I have a pattern of feeling nervous when someone looks at me that way. So breaking our experiences down into patterns can happen only when we become these detectives and become more aware of the things that trigger and activate us as we go through our lives and work on our businesses.
Wow. I feel like it's such an amazing way to also kind of get in deeper connection because you're almost being more mindful when you're with someone.
More present, 100%, absolutely.
Well, can you tell us what is on the horizon for MindFix?
Sure. We're simply continuing to work with individuals one-on-one. We stopped working on small programs and doing kind of like quick fixes. And so now we're focused on helping people who really are looking to transform their lives. And they're looking for 12-month, 18-month, expansive, beautiful journeys where we get to look at all the different aspects and really contribute to the up-leveling of individuals and who are excited to dive in and go on a journey with us. We are continuing to host, we have quarterly private retreats that we hold in Colorado, where we combine mental work and physical work and trauma work and emotional work, relationship work, communications work. We combine all of these different layers over the course of 3 days in Colorado. So we still have, I think we have 3 left this year that aren't sold out. We've been doing those for 6 years, so we're really passionate about it. And then we are also exploring something that we're calling a creation curriculum. So we do so much subtraction and we create this really beautiful, fertile soil. We clear out the rocks and the weeds of someone's inner experience. And then sometimes people are left with, wow, I feel amazing, but what's next? And so we're working on a creation curriculum to help people create what it is they desire once we've cleared out those invisible barriers and obstacles and make it easier for them to move forward more quickly.
There's so much expansion when I hear you talk about what you're doing and involvement with the work. How do you follow that?
Well, in a way, it's repeating what I just shared with you and what we recommended to listeners. We do it internally. So when we run into someone who is not experiencing the results that we expect, when we find that a client or a program has resistance, we look at it, we attune to it, we tweak and improve it. We're constantly evolving. In fact, the work that we do now, there is actually 0% left of when I started the business 6 or 7 years ago. And we were getting incredible, extraordinary, life-changing results in the very first 6 months that we opened our doors. We are doing 0 of that work now. That's how much the technology and the methodologies have evolved, because we have found consistently more powerful ways to help people experience what it is they want, to get unstuck, to achieve more of that confidence and clarity and relief that they're looking for.
Yeah, it sounds like it's almost getting there because you're working with people, you're seeing results, and then you're like, how can I do this better and even faster? And so you're just so committed to that process. So it keeps evolving in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would be your biggest piece of advice for the listeners on doing the thing?
Yeah, my biggest piece of advice would be an invitation to slow down and examine what invisible blocks could be removed. So instead of just focusing on what more can I do, perhaps asking the question, what could I remove? What could I subtract that could change everything? When people don't subtract and they spend all their energy trying to push through and jump over these barriers and hurdles and anchors over and over and over, we see burnout, we see physical pain, we see distressed relationships, we see businesses that start to grow and then fall apart. And so the question up front for people can be, what might I be able to remove or shift or subtract, instead of asking, what more can I do? What more do I need?
What would be an example of being able to do that?
Mm-hmm. So there might be someone there's someone who worked with us last year, and he had invested a tremendous amount of money in sales training. And he was like, I'm thinking about spending $20K on this new sales training thing, working with the sales master. I'm learning the 30 objections and how to do it. And I'm practicing my scripts. And so he was moving forward. It was, what more can I do? What more can I do? How do I practice more? How do I practice more? Why am I not doing well in sales? So in this same vein of applying this recommendation of subtraction to his life, to his business, what we went in is he's like, I am terrified to talk about money. I am terrified to bring up money. I avoid it. I hate it. My voice trembles. So here he was, more and more techniques. I think there was something else. I forget. It was money and I think decision making. He was nervous to ask about who the decision makers were, who was the person in power who could actually say yes or no. So he had these two massive fears, but all he was doing was spending more money on more techniques and more tools and more tactics. So we worked with him and we subtracted those fears. So at the end of working with him, it was, are you scared to talk about money? He laughed. He was like, no, no. Are you nervous to ask who the decision maker is? Of course not. That'd be ridiculous. So we subtracted those blocks and he was able to get on the sales calls. He was able to move forward with them. He was able to apply all these things that he had learned. And suddenly it was easy. Suddenly his close rate went up. All of the things that he had been wanting, wasn't getting, did not need more advice, more tools, more tactics, more strategies, more, come on, you can do it, more rah from anybody. He needed to slow down and go, what's in my way? Got it. Here's these two massive fears. Let's subtract those. And the great thing about subtraction is once you pull a splinter out, it's not there anymore. You don't have to keep pulling it out. It's not like addition. It's not like Band-Aids. You don't have to keep practicing and doing this type of work. Once you really do subtract or dissolve something, for the most part, you don't have to keep repeating it because it's been removed.
Your team is surgeons.
Yeah. We've used that word sometimes.
I'm curious, is there anything coming alive for you just in this conversation that we're having?
Wow, what a beautiful question. There is. In the back of my mind, I feel like I'm giving a talk or I'm sharing what I know. And it's sometimes odd to be in a conversation without another side, without hearing as the people are listening, like, how does this land? I'm so curious, where's the resistance for them? What is the story that goes, nuh-uh, this isn't possible, or nuh-uh, I tried this, or I'm so curious when someone hears what I share, which is just my day-to-day life, what I see every day. It's all I'm consumed by. It's the retreats. It's the people I hang out with. It's the work that I do. It's my team members. It's the conversations I have. And I'm so immersed in this. I am so curious how either exciting or shocking or contrarian or impossible it sounds to someone else who is not in this business day in and day out and hasn't seen everything that I've seen. So I think there's arising within me a deep curiosity of like, I'm sharing this with you. And then at the end, I'm going to close my laptop and go on with my day. And I don't have that feedback that I get that when I'm in like a group discussion or a one-on-one conversation with someone who's asking questions. So I think if I had to summarize, the answer would be just curiosity.
Well, this is a good time to just say where they should follow up with you. And then if they want to share any of that feedback, would you be open to hearing?
Yeah, I would love it. That would be so much fun. Absolutely. Yeah, so I'll provide my email address is Erin, ERIN at mindfixgroup.com. It's not on the website. So if people want to use that to just reach out to me and send me a direct email, that would be incredible. They can follow me on Facebook. I'm pretty active there. But yeah, just hopping over to our website or sending me an email or saying hi on Facebook are the easiest ways to reach out and connect to me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been incredible. And I just know it's going to help so many people.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
And for you guys, don't forget, do the thing. Don't wait for opportunity. Create it.